escape, you know? So there were rumors that he was going to resign. I didn't really take those too seriously, although I thought that it wouldn't be, out of the realm of possibility because they might want to have Kamala. I don't know which one is the right way. God forbid I get it wrong. I'm somehow racist. That's the new talking point in the mainstream media. I think they want you to say it Kamala. I thought that maybe the rumors were they might have had a grain of truth because they might want her to be going into the next election, this upcoming election, from a seat of incumbency, even if the seat of incumbency is purely 3 months. Say what, honey? So it's just, I don't know how exactly it would have played out in this scenario, but it's a pretty known fact that incumbents are much harder to defeat than someone who is freshly running. Now, it remains to be seen how much that would actually make a difference, considering it's not like dude resigned or, God forbid, died or something a year ago and she had a whole year to kind of prove that she could be president. And even though I don't think that this would be the case, but like prove to the Democratic base that she could be like a worthy, good president in their eyes, she's already kind of signaled some new legislation. She's kind of leaked to some of the Dem insiders, I guess you'd call them, some of the cheerleaders for the Democratic Party, like Mark Cuban, for example. He was tweeting out that she or her aides were calling him asking about crypto, so he took that as a sign that she was going to be better on crypto, whatever that means. She's leaking to the press that she's going to completely scrap his entire State Department, which, by definition, that's a good thing, only if she doesn't replace them with equally shitty people. So if you get Antony Blinken out of there and then you replace them with, like, I don't know, John Bolton, which would never happen, but just as a thought experiment, obviously it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. Each are shitty in their own way. Both want to invade every country that they've ever come across and want perpetual war. So like it doesn't matter. So if she actually were to put an entire new State Department and like other cabinet picks in who were I'm not gonna delude myself into thinking that we might get a progressive or someone like that in there, but God forbid, at least they're maybe like a little bit less inclined to just go drop bombs everywhere in the world. That would actually objectively be a good thing. Now, do I think that, that means I'm going to go out and rush and vote for Kamala? Fuck no. But, she's trying to, what it seems like, my point is, in saying all of this, is that it kind of seems like she's trying to distance herself from Biden while still riding his coattails for all the shit libs who are like, still sad that he's not running, which is insane to me. They're so in an alternate reality, it's not even funny. But I think she's trying to ride his coattails while also like kind of signaling to people that she's going to be a departure from the Biden White House in certain ways, namely foreign policy and maybe a little bit more corpo friendly, which obviously is not good. But, that's good for her pocketbooks. That's like, the main funders. I think she raised damn near like $250 million since he's resigned because she, has come out and basically signaled to all these corporate donors that she's going to be plenty friendly to them. And so They're pouring money into her campaign. Gotta love the influence of giant corporations and donors, you know. I'm not talking about the, you know, like me, for example, when I was young and a little bit more naive and donated $10 to Bernie Sanders' campaign, and now I can't get them to stop fucking emailing me for like people who I could not only care less but actively despise. It's like I voted one time for Bernie Sanders and felt weird doing that because already I didn't like the Democrats, but I liked him at the time before he kind of showed its true colors. And now, no matter how many times I unsubscribe, Act Blue and all of these other, you know, so-called activist donation organizations, they've sold my data to everyone because I get emails nonstop no matter how many times I press unsubscribe. I mark them as spam. They do those scummy tactics where they just make, you know, a randomly generated email so that they can blast it out to everyone who's on their list without getting flagged as a blocked email address. It's like total scam tactics, but from what's supposed to be a legitimate organization. They're not really, but they're not like a legit scammer in the, you know, like a random call from some dude in India saying that he's from Microsoft tech support. They're not like that level of scam, but they're approaching it. So, you know, Kamala, she's not exactly getting a flood of, you know, $10 donations like what I did to Bernie. She's getting like $1 million donations from giant, you know, multi-millionaires and potentially even billionaires who are then donating to these super PACs who then donate to her campaign. It's the literally just like 1 degree of separation middleman that somehow turns it from illegal campaign contributions to completely legal. And it's legalized bribery, and it has been for a while. So she's been flooded with money now that she's kind of signaled to every, you know, corporate cretin out there that don't worry, I'm going to be nice and friendly to you guys. So like, you know, when even, let me see, Jim, is this how you say Jim Cramer, Kamala.
Here's the big secret about women. We want you to flirt with us. We even want you
What the fuck is that ad?
My
Jesus
mission is
Christ,
simple.
Bro.
To make you
YouTube
money.
is such a
I'm here to level the
cesspool.
playing field for all
Here we go.
investors.
All right.
To make up its mind about what it means for Biden to drop out, or Kamala Harris almost certainly becoming the Democratic nominee. I think the race will shake out as one candidate who's happy to work with mega cap tech, and then the candidate of MAGA, which
This
doesn't
guy's
necessarily
wrong on
translate
everything,
into support
but
for mega
it's,
cap tech.
you
can
know
see
it's
this field
bad when
display-
this guy is like excited about your campaign. Jim Cramer, Mad Money guy. You know when he's like salivating over the fact that you're going to be the nominee now, that you're terrible. When this guy's excited, all this guy cares about, he's got no ideology other than what is going to make me the most money. You know, principles and, you know, ideals be damned. You know, if he had to sell out his own family to the gulag for, you know, a couple mil, I'm convinced he would. So when this guy is like, ooh, yes, Kamala, it's a sign. You know, you can tell a lot about a person by who supports them and also who actively works against them. You can tell a lot. So, you know, if someone's got all of the worst people in the world working against them, that says a lot that they're probably, you know, a good person in what they do. And, you know, vice versa, if they have good people who are endorsing them. And it's just a mix of the two. So chalk this up to just another, you know, really scummy human being who is super stoked, just beyond stoked
Play
that
all day today.
Kamala
Dow
is going
advanced
to be
128
the
points.
nominee.
S&P 500 gained 1.08%, but the Nasdaq, the movement at the time, one that was aimed at curtailing the power of the robber barons and the money men on the regime. But how about the other side of the trade? That's more interesting to me because it just unfolded yesterday.
God, his voice is
Kamala
like
Harris
nails
side.
on a chalkboard.
Here's where I disagree with pretty much everything you've heard about in the last 24 hours. I think Harris would be way better for big business than Biden, and certainly better for big business than Trump. Sure, she wants higher tax rates for corporations. That could be an issue. That was the smokescreen I heard all day today. However, I'm talking about something very different here. I'm talking about an ethos so deep that it's actually somewhat historic.
So, I think she's also kind of telegraphed that she wants to end this whole, reign of Lena Khan. And regardless of what you think about the Biden administration, and Lord knows I am no fan of Biden or his administration, you can still call a spade and give credit where it's due. I do think the appointment of Lena Khan and some of her actions, definitely not perfect. I wish that they would be a lot better at enforcing the law. But at least we go from a completely impotent regulatory system to at least semi-enforcing some of our laws. It's been way too long that it's like, hey, dude, we have laws on the books against monopolies and against these anti-competitive practices that a lot of these companies are engaging in. And our organization that's supposed to have all of the authority to go slap these companies around and say, bad dog, you're not supposed to do that. They've just been completely not doing it. And it's whether it's because they're getting, their palms greased in a smoke-filled back room and like on the same team as these guys, or a mixture of, God, I don't know, maybe they're ideologically aligned with these corporations. I don't know. Maybe they don't think that they would win on the merits. I've probably a mix of everything. But I think Lena Khan and her kind of more willingness to actually go after a lot of these companies is a good thing. I actually think that it's a good thing. When the FTC is stronger and actually flexing their muscle, it's better for capitalism. That's the funny thing, is people like Kramer don't like it because it's directly antithetical to crony capitalism. I am not against capitalism. I'm against crony capitalism. I don't think capitalism is like the be-all, end-all best system ever. I think that it could definitely be tweaked. But one of the ways that it needs to be checked, or like basically checked and balanced, is to prevent these anti-competitive practices, to keep it from turning into crony capitalism. That is what's led to a lot of the problems that we have today, where you have just massive wealth inequality being consolidated at like the top richest 1,000 people and everyone else struggling, is because we've just had such unchecked anti-competitive practices happening between Google, Apple, blanking on another huge one, Walmart, all of these companies who need to get slapped around and reminded that, hey, you live in a nation of laws that are going to be exercised equally, and we can take you down. If you want to go move your company headquarters overseas, go for it, but we're going to make your life hell, trying to sell in arguably one of the, if not the biggest market in the world, which is the United States. Obviously, selling stuff in other countries is massive, but losing a whole market would just devastate these companies. So we have so much muscle to flex against them. It just takes someone who's actually willing to enforce the law, because they're not doing anything, like over enforcing or going above what the law says they're allowed to do. It's just, we have laws on the books. This is textbook monopolistic anti-competitive practices. Let me just stop them using all of the authority and tools at my disposal. Jim Cramer doesn't like that, because God forbid a business just does really well without being a monopoly. He wants, obviously, to absolutely maximize profits, do stock buybacks and, oh, there's a competitor. What if we just go buy them out for, a large sum of money, and it'll be like an initial investment. We lose some money, but then we make it up pretty quickly because now we don't have any competition again. And boom, we can raise prices. That's directly anti-competitive, illegal. And it happens all the time. And it's just like people forgot that we can stop that from happening. So I really hope that Trump and Kamala don't stop that. I think Trump will probably remove Lena Khan, which would suck, but I hope he puts in, a principled libertarian or something, someone who's like, obviously it's got to be a conservative because dude's conservative. He's not going to put in like a liberal person in there. But if it's going to be a conservative, doesn't really matter as long as they're principled and not corrupt. They'll just exercise the laws as they're supposed to be exercised. It's really not a ideological thing. It's more of a just if you're willing to fairly, enforce these laws.
At their best, the Trump Vance ticket stands for helping small businesses thrive, making them keystones of towns all over America before those towns were crushed by deindustrialization. They see that as a huge problem. They want to bring that world back along with better wages for our workers. Harris, on the other hand, is a true believer in globalization, much like most of our leaders prior to 2016. In Trump's world, Taiwan stole our semiconductor manufacturing jobs, so now it should pay a price for the protection of the U.S. military. But I suspect Harris will share the vision of Gina Raimondo, the current Commerce Secretary, who recognizes Taiwan is a friend, one that needs to be defended, even as we subsidize our own domestic semiconductor manufacturing in order to get more control over the supply chain.
He says Taiwan stole our semiconductor manufacturing. No, they didn't. What's stopping us from doing it? I mean, obviously, we have the CHIPS Act, which is supposed to bring a lot of that manufacturing back home. They didn't steal it from us, you moron. It was, hey, we can build it a lot cheaper, and companies decided to go and outsource there. It's a tale as old as time now. Don't act like they just came in and they were like, yep, Taiwan, using their massive influence in the world, somehow came and bullied the U.S. and stole all of their semiconductor production. The fuck are you smoking, dude? All it was that we could pay them like way less money to build these things and it's way cheaper. So let's just do it over there. And none of our presidents said, hey, we're going to make it economically less viable for you to do that because we want to incentivize you to manufacture in the United States and therefore have better paying jobs. That's basically what happened with everything. That's why everything is made in China nowadays, because they can pay them slave wages over there and then just ship it over here like some sort of dystopian hellscape. And there's no, incentive and disincentive structure for basically them to say, hey, we're going to either make it way less profitable in the form of tariffs or, different taxes and stuff, or even not profitable for you to outsource all of this production to China because we want to bring manufacturing back home. The strongest middle class in America was when our manufacturing was all done in-house, or at least most of it was, and we had as little to import as possible. As things, like Kramer is saying, globalized, which I guess he's saying Kamala Harris is totally for, all of a sudden, all that happens is they go to the cheapest common denominator, let's call it, and it's like, as long as we can ship the resources to this area and then cut out a massive portion of cost, which is the labor, then it economically makes sense. It's insane to think about that it's cheaper because of how little they pay these people to ship all of the materials to a different place. have the labor done, and then ship it back. Literally thousands of miles, tons and tons of fuel, literally tons and tons of fuel just to ship it back and forth. And somehow that's cheaper. That shows you how little they pay these people and how it just exacerbates poverty in these other countries while they try to sell it to the American people as, oh, well, your goods are going to be way more expensive if we manufacture here. What they don't tell you is that if we actually had a functioning economy that didn't have such a disparity in wealth, shitty pay, basically for almost every job comparative to the work output, and we had a bunch more manufacturing jobs from here, sure, stuff would be more expensive to be manufactured here, but the wealth of everyone would be higher and it would compensate for it. How do you think we did it before we globalized? It's not like everything was just too expensive for anyone to afford. It's just everyone actually made a living wage and like was pretty comfortable in the middle class. And so when they bought something from a United States made company, they could still afford it even if it was higher than outsourcing it to China. But look at this guy. He's just absolutely creaming his pants over the fact that she's going to be, quote unquote, for globalization, which just means we're going to take advantage of these developing nations even harder. And I'm basically going to get way more money for my investments because of it.
What makes Harris different from Biden? Look, President Biden is someone who, by his own admission, doesn't know all that much about capital. He's arguably the most pro-union president in history, something he's proclaimed endlessly. Walk the picket line against Ford. That's been Biden's approach to populism, and an adversarial attitude to big business and small business, for that matter. But Harris, I don't think she has the same view. She didn't.
Look at him, look at him, look at him. This is so hilarious to me because he says that Biden is unbelievably pro-union. So two things. He's saying that as if it's a bad thing. Think about that. He's saying it as if that's like the worst things ever. Oh, give me a second. Yo. Hello? It's my grandma not knowing how to work electronics as usual. Let me make sure she's not hurting herself by falling or something. Grandma, you called me. On your cell phone.
Well, I lost
She was gonna watch me, yeah, but somehow she lost me, I guess. That is going to be way too hard to explain to you over the phone. It's being live streamed, and therefore once I end the live stream, it will be able to be viewed again, yes.
Well, I have to wait, I guess.
Yep, I can have Colton put it on for you tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry to bother you.
You're fine. I'm just ranting about Jim Cramer right now.
What I'm doing is watching about the San Andreas Fault.
Oh, nice. Very useful random information. Yeah. All right. Alrighty. I love you too, Grandma. Bye-bye. Somehow I have ESP when it's really just she called me on her cell phone and didn't realize that I answered. She's funny. Regardless, the reason I'm talking about Jim Cramer, as my wonderful wife is like, is that even on topic? The reason I'm talking about Jim Cramer is to point out that Biden stepping down, Kamala Harris is like telegraphing, like Jim Cramer says, that she's going to be way more pro-globalization. And the funny thing is, what I was saying is that he is talking about Biden, saying he's the most pro-union president, which, like I was saying before, he's using that as an insult, which is hilarious to me. It shows what Kramer thinks about unions. Typical big business guy, fuck a union, because then I actually have to pay and treat my employees well. And B, Biden is not the most pro-union president. The guy crushed a railroad strike when the railroad union had them on strike to get super basic things. They weren't asking for gold bars for their paycheck. They were asking for not doing like literally 15 days straight shifts, and they wanted like a little bit of time to spend with their families and sick leave, like stuff that, you know, my wife, she jokes all the time, and it's true that like if one iota of what companies do to workers in this country was done to the French, they would be in the streets in an hour. There wouldn't need to be any like giant mobilization for a protest. They would all be in the streets just automatically. And yet workers in this country will let these employers just absolutely walk all over them. And I understand that there's not a whole lot of recourse, but there needs to be a lot more willingness and organization to get workers fired up and willing to basically give giant middle fingers to these large employers. And you would be surprised. These people will capitulate so fast. They'll try all their tricks, but if people just hold strong, they capitulate so fast, because what are they going to do? What would happen if all of Amazon, just like in Staten Island, unionized and told Jeff Bezos to suck their nuts, or, you know, we're not going to come back to work? They would capitulate and basically give them almost everything they want, as long as it's reasonable, which I'm sure it would be, almost instantly, because the amount of money that they lose in downtime is so astronomical that all these workers have to do is just band together like a union and say, fuck you, no, we're not going back to work until you give us the most basic stuff. And so I just want to show one more thing.
Your donation will help us. Your donation will help us to open more field offices.
All right, so let's watch a little compilation of some of Kamala's most cringe moments.
Not today.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. And
Okay, so the context for that one is, I think, for whatever reason, because this is the party of we're not actually going to do anything for you, but we're going to virtue signal on stupid social issues. They had this weird meeting, and it was one of her meetings, and they thought, you know what would really get the Democrats, progressives, the lefties fired up? If we went around the table before we start this meeting and we all introduce each other with our pronouns and what we're wearing for some reason, because for some reason that is now a thing. My name is Kamala Harris, and I am a woman, pronouns she, her, and I am wearing a light blue suit. And everyone, I wish they would have played the whole thing, because everyone then goes around, does the exact same thing. I am a woman wearing a button-up, blah, blah, blah. And it was like the most just weird, are you people aliens from another planet? Do you know how to human? It was so awkward. It's not even funny. Here's more of her cackles in weird places where no one should be laughing. And she's laughing like a villain in a cheesy Batman movie.
Do you plan to visit the border?
Not today.
Do you have
More
any
cackles.
plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border.
We are going to the border. We've been to the border. I remember this. This was so unbelievable that I cannot believe she's gotten anywhere in life, let alone to the VP, first being prosecutor, then to senator, then to VP, and now the presidential candidate. It is insane that someone like this could fail upwards so hard. Are you going to go to the border? We're going to go to the border. We've been to the border. We've been to the border. And then watch the rest of this clip. Lester Holt is going to point out, well, you haven't been to the border. And basically, that's what I'm asking you. When are you going to the border? You know, I'm not asking we as in we, the administration. I'm asking, when are you, Kamala Harris, going to the border?
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
And she goes, yeah, and I haven't been to Europe either. What? What kind of fucking answer is that? It's like she tried to play it off as joking, but it also comes across as catty bitch in the same sentence. And like the most non-answer, it was one of the worst possible answers. You would have to like actively think of a worse answer. I don't know how that just materialized in her brain, but let's keep going.
Which is why we will work together and continue to work together to address these issues, to tackle these challenges, and to work together as we continue to work operating from the new norms, rules, and agreements that we will convene to work together on.
Oh my God. It's basically just going to be a lot of that. Like if word salad was a human being, I saw something someone said, I forget exactly where it was, but it was like, it's so unbelievably true. And it was, if trying to meet the minimum word requirement on an essay was a human being, that is Kamala Harris.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time.
Oh, here's the time.
The significance
Time
of the
comments.
passage of time. So when you think
The
about
passage
it,
of
there's
time.
great
So when you think
significance
about
to the
it,
passage
there's
of
great
time in
significance
terms
to the
what we
passage
need
of
to do
time
to
in terms
lay
of what
these
we need to
wires,
do
what
to
we need
lay
to do
these
to
wires.
create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about it like a day in the life of our children.
If you just like put those words onto paper and then give it to a psychiatrist, they might immediately diagnose whoever wrote it with schizophrenia. I swear to God. What even was she trying to say? Sometimes you can be like, all right, this is a long-winded word salad way of her trying to say like whatever, you know, this, and this. Trying to be as charitable as humanly possible, cannot think of what she was trying to convey with those words. That was just the definition of I'm making noises with my mouth with no meaning behind them whatsoever. It's insane. It's actually like kind of a skill that she can say nothing in the most amount of words possible.
And so I think about this subject of our yellow school buses.
Here's the school buses one.
Because think about it, yellow school buses are our nation's largest form of mass transit.
This is 100%. I'm supposed to go in front of the class to describe the chapter in this book that we're reading, and I didn't read the book. So that's exactly what she's doing right here. It's like I looked at the first couple pages of the book. It said something about yellow school buses. So I am going to just pull shit out of my ass for the next God knows how long, talking about school buses and how they're the largest form of mass transit in the country.
How about that? Every day. So yes, and let's applaud because it gets them where they need to go.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia.
Please have a seat. Please have a seat.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. And
Do you plan to visit the border?
Oh my God. Come on. Free Press Journal. There's like so much more you could put into the compilation. You don't have to redo. But yeah, this is probably going to be its own segment of Kamala Harris and her many gaffes. I absolutely love the passage of time one. They're all golden, but there's some that really stand out. The school buses is pretty funny. So is the Ukraine one. So there is a country in Europe called Ukraine. There's another country next to it called Russia. And it's literally exactly what I would do when I'd get in front of the class and need to fill 5 minutes talking about a subject I didn't research. And I'm just like, so, Mexico. In terms of where we are right now, Mexico is south. The people of Mexico are called Mexicans. They speak Spanish. We teach Spanish in this school. And it would just be like that. It would just be anything that I can think of that is an objective fact, but that required zero research on my end at all. That is Kamala Harris. And that is our Democratic nominee for president. Aren't we just so lucky with this election and basically every past election for the last few decades? Just cream of the crop. That's why I can't believe there are people who call themselves coconut pilled out there. Unbelievable. But let the K-Hive start again. I'll never forget K-Hive on Twitter when she was initially running. It was unbelievable the things that they would do to try and defend this woman who clearly is like so in over her head. It's not even comical. It's funny to laugh at, but then you realize, oh, she has a legitimate chance to be the most powerful person in the world, or one of the most powerful people in the world. And it's one of those things where it's so shitty and so scary, the only thing you can do is laugh. So that's Kamala Harris. Probably going to divide this up into two different segments. One is Biden, Mr. Teleprompter himself, not looking at the camera, basically saying nothing, just like Kamala talking. It was like a mini State of the Union address where he just talks, filibusters for a bunch of time, talking about how he's just so great. The country's doing phenomenal. Donald Trump is just, an existential threat to the country, and go Kamala. And basically, the only newsworthy thing in that entire 11 minutes is that A, the dude is alive. B, he's not going to resign, contrary to like the little bit of rumors that I heard floating around. And he's basically trying to save his legacy and not look like a complete failed president. And that's about it. Pretty uneventful. I scheduled a live stream for that, but it was fun to make fun of Kamala. That always is. So, thanks for tuning in.